Shawshank Redemption might just be the greatest prison movie ever made, and possibly one of the best films of all time. With a story that spans nearly 3 decades inside the walls of a maximum security prison. But how well do you actually know it? Do you remember Andy's first day? When he met Red? The rooftop tarring job? Brooks feeding Jake? The opera scene? The arrival of Tommy Williams? The sisters and their attacks? Captain Hadley beating Boggs? Andy crawling through 500 yards of sewage? Red's parole hearings? Brooks hanging himself? The Warden's secret accounts? The library donations? Haywood's joke about Andy? Red throwing the baseball? Or Andy and Red's reunion on that beach in Mexico? Today I am going to cover every single detail of this film, diving into the original Stephen King novella, analyzing deleted scenes, exploring the real-world inspirations, and examining every character's complete story arc. There is so much depth to this story, and I am going extremely comprehensive detail. So grab your rock hammer and about an hour of your time, and let's begin at the beginning. It all begins in 1947 in Portland, Maine. Before Andy Dufresne ever set foot in Shawshank, before he was prisoner number 37927, he was a successful vice president at a large Portland bank. Andy was a banker. That was his whole identity. Numbers, accounts, investments, loans. He was good at it, really good at it. He made decent money, lived in a nice house, and was married to a woman named Linda Collins Dufresne. But here is where everything starts to fall apart. Linda was having an affair. She was sleeping with a golf pro at the local country club. Glenn Quentin was his name. Andy knew about it. He confronted Linda about it multiple times. They had arguments, bad ones. The kind of arguments where things get said that cannot be unsaid. On the night of September 10th, 1947, Linda and Glenn Quentin were found shot to death in Glenn's bungalow, both killed with a gun. Multiple shots. It was brutal. It was violent. And all the evidence pointed directly at Andy Dufresne. Okay, good. So within the first couple of minutes, we are already at a murder trial. It is a little dark for a starting point, but that is exactly where this story lives. Andy was arrested and put on trial for double murder. The prosecution's case was strong. Too strong. They had motive. Andy's wife was cheating on him. They had means. Andy owned a gun, a .38 revolver, the same caliber that killed both victims. They had opportunity. Andy had no alibi for that night. He admitted to being near the bungalow. He admitted to drinking heavily. He admitted to loading his gun and driving to the scene with the intention of confronting them, or maybe worse. Andy testified that he sat in his car outside the bungalow. He drank a full bottle of bourbon. He held the gun. He thought about going in there, but he claims he changed his mind. He threw the gun into the Royal River and drove away. He says he left them alive, but here's the problem. Nobody ever found that gun. The prosecution argued that Andy went inside, killed them both in a rage, disposed of the weapon, and made up the story about throwing it in the river. The jury believed the prosecution. Andy Dufresne was found guilty of 2 counts of murder in the first degree. The judge sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences, back to back. One for Linda, one for Glenn. He would serve his time at Shawshank State Prison. Now let me talk about Shawshank itself before Andy even arrives there. Shawshank State Prison was built in 1845. Over 100 years old by the time Andy gets there. It is located in Maine, somewhere inland. The exact location is never specified, but it does not matter. What matters is that Shawshank is a fortress. High walls, guard towers, barbed wire, thick stone walls that seem to absorb hope itself. The prison houses around 300 inmates at any given time. Murderers, thieves, rapists, armed robbers, violent men serving long sentences. Some are lifers, some are doing 20 or 30 years. Very few ever leave Shawshank except in a pine box. The prison is run by Warden Samuel Norton, a cold, religious, hypocritical man who quotes scripture while running the most corrupt prison in the state. Norton has been warden since 1945, 2 years before Andy arrived. He presents himself as a righteous Christian. He has an embroidered sampler on his wall that reads, "His judgment cometh, and that right soon." He makes every new inmate read from the Bible. He talks about God and salvation and following rules. But behind that facade, Norton is brutal, greedy, and completely corrupt. His right-hand man is Captain Byron Hadley. Hadley is the head guard, a violent man with a short temper and zero empathy. Hadley has been at Shawshank for years. He knows every trick the inmates try. He rules through fear and violence. If an inmate steps out of line, Hadley beats them. Sometimes he beats them for no reason at all, just because he can. The other guards follow Hadley's lead. Trout, Mert, Youngblood, they are all cut from the same cloth. They see inmates as less than human. Then there are the inmates themselves. Ellis Boyd Redding, known as Red. He is the man who can get things. Red has been in Shawshank since 1927, 20 years by the time Andy arrives. Red is serving a life sentence for murder. He killed 3 people during a robbery gone wrong. He has been denied parole twice. Red is the narrator of this story. He is the one telling us everything. Red is smart, observant, and has a network inside and outside the prison. If you need something, Red can get it for you. Cigarettes, candy, alcohol, marijuana, pin-up posters, whatever you want, Red has connection. He charges fair prices and delivers on his promises. That has kept him safe and respected in Shawshank for 2 decades. Red has a group of friends. Haywood, a loud motor mouth who never stops talking. Jigger, who is quieter but loyal. Floyd, who plays harmonica. Skeets, who barely gets any line. And Snooze, who got his nickname because he sleeps constantly. These men are Red's family inside Shawshank. They eat together, work together, and look out for each other. There's also Brooks Hatlin. Brooks is the prison librarian. He has been in Shawshank since 1905, 42 years by the time Andy arrives. Brooks is an old man, institutionalized. Prison is the only home he knows anymore. Brooks has a pet crow named Jake that he found as a baby and raised. Brooks feeds Jake maggots and treats him like a son. The library Brooks runs is a joke. One small room with a few shelves of old donated books. Most of them are outdated or falling apart. The prison barely funds it. The state barely cares. But Brooks takes pride in his work. It is all he has. Then there are the Sisters, a gang of violent inmates led by a man named Boggs Diamond. The Sisters are sexual predators. They rape weaker inmates. They target new prisoners who look soft or educated or different. Andy Dufresne will become their primary target. Boggs is the leader, a huge man with a cruel streak. His main enforcers are Rooster and Pete. The three of them hunt together. The guards know what the Sisters do, but they do not stop it. Sometimes they even facilitate it by looking the other way or isolating victims. It is part of the horror of Shawshank. So now let me describe Andy's arrival. It is 1947, spring. A bus pulls up to Shawshank carrying new inmates. Andy Dufresne steps off that bus wearing a suit and tie. He looks terrified, but he is trying to hide it. The other new inmates look rough, hardened criminals, but Andy looks like an accountant, because that is what he was. The inmates already in the yard immediately start sizing up the new arrival. Red and his friends make bets on which new inmate will break first, will cry on their first night. Red bets on Andy. He thinks Andy looks soft, weak, the kind of man who will not survive Shawshank. The new inmates are processed, stripped, searched, hosed down with fire hoses, sprayed with delousing powder, given prison uniforms, assigned numbers. Andy becomes prisoner 30927. They are marched to their cells. Andy is put in cell block 5. His cell is tiny, 6 by 8 feet, a cot, a sink, a toilet, concrete walls, bars, no privacy, no dignity, nothing. That first night is hell. The guards bang their batons on the bars. The inmates yell and scream. It is chaos, pure intimidation, designed to break the new inmates immediately. Someone starts crying. Not Andy, a fat inmate who cannot handle it. He sobs loudly. The guards drag him out. Captain Hadley beats him with his baton, badly. The inmate is named Fat Ass by the other prisoner. We never learn his real name. Fat Ass is beaten so severely that he dies that night. Internal bleeding. The guards cover it up. Andy hears all of this from his cell. He sees what Shawshank really is on night 1. Red loses his bet. Andy does not break, at least not visibly. Andy starts to adjust to prison life. He wakes up at dawn, eats terrible food in the cafeteria, works his assigned job. At first, Andy is assigned to the laundry, washing prison uniform. It is hot, humid, miserable work. The machines are loud. The soap burns your hands, but Andy does the work without complaining. He keeps his head down, tries to be invisible. But invisibility is impossible for someone like Andy. He is too different, too educated, too quiet. The Sisters notice him immediately. Boggs Diamond approaches Andy in the laundry. Boggs makes his intentions clear. He wants Andy. Sexually, Andy refuses. Boggs does not take no for an answer. The first assault happens in the laundry room. Boggs and his gang corner. Andy fights back. He actually fights back harder than anyone expected. But it is 3 against 1. Andy loses. He is beaten and raped. This becomes a pattern. Every few weeks, the Sisters find Andy alone somewhere. The showers, the laundry, a blind spot in the yard. They assault him, beat him. Andy fights every single time. He never submits willingly. He makes them work for it. This earns him respect from some inmates, but it does not stop the Sisters. The guards see the bruises on Andy. They know what is happening. They do nothing. About 6 months into Andy's sentence, he approaches Red in the exercise yard. Andy wants to buy something, a rock hammer. Red is confused. A rock hammer is a small geology tool, about 6 or 7 inches long with a sharp pointed end. Red asks what Andy wants it for. Andy explains that he is interested in rocks, geology. He used to collect rocks and fossils before prison. He wants to start again. It will give him something to do with his time. Red agrees to get the hammer but warns Andy that it will take a few weeks. Andy says that is fine. He has nothing but time. Red acquires the rock hammer through his connections. He charges Andy $10. Andy pays. Red hands over the hammer wrapped in a cloth. Red jokes that the hammer is not much of a weapon. Andy agrees. He says it would take a man 600 years to tunnel through the prison wall with a rock hammer. Red laughs. They both laugh. This is the beginning of their friendship. Andy starts collecting rocks during yard time. He picks up interesting stones, examines them, polishes them with the rock hammer. The other inmates think it is weird but harmless. Andy also starts carving chess pieces out of the rocks. Pawns, rooks, knights, kings, queen. He makes an entire chess set over several months. The detail is impressive. Andy is patient, meticulous. These are qualities that will define his entire plan later, but nobody realizes it yet. Red starts to respect Andy, not just because Andy is tough enough to survive the sisters, but because Andy has not given up. Most men in Shawshank become zombies, dead inside, going through motions, waiting to die. But Andy keeps his mind active. He has not surrendered his humanity. In 1949, 2 years into Andy's sentence, something happens that changes everything. The guards are expanding the license plate factory building. They need to tar the roof. Captain Hadley picks a work crew of inmates to do the job. Andy is selected. So are Red and his friends. It is a hot spring day. The inmates are up on the roof spreading hot tar. Miserable work. Hadley and the other guards are drinking cold beers and talking. Andy overhears Hadley complaining about taxes. Hadley just inherited $35,000 from his wealthy brother who died, but the government is going to take a huge chunk in inheritance tax. Hadley is furious. He says he will be lucky to keep $20,000 after taxes. Andy stops working. He walks over to Hadley. This is insane. Inmates do not approach guard, especially not Captain Hadley. The other inmates freeze. Red thinks Andy is about to get thrown off the roof. Andy addresses Hadley respectfully. He says he could not help but overhear Hadley's problem. Andy says there is a legal way for Hadley to keep all $35,000 without paying a cent in taxes. Hadley grabs Andy, threatens him, accuses Andy of being a smart-mouthed banker. But another guard named Mert tells Hadley to hear Andy out. Andy explains, if Hadley gives the money to his wife as a one-time gift, the IRS cannot touch it. It is a tax loophole, completely legal. All Hadley needs to do is file the paperwork correctly. Hadley asks what Andy wants in return. Andy says 3 beers apiece for each of his coworkers. Hadley agrees. Andy prepares all the paperwork for Hadley, gets everything filed correctly. And on that spring day, Red and his friends sit on a roof drinking cold bohemian-style beer while the sun sets. It is the first time any of them have felt like free men in years. Red later says they felt like they were tarring the roof of their own house. That is what hope feels like. After the rooftop job, Andy's reputation changes. Word spreads that Andy helped a guard with tax problems. Other guards start approaching Andy. They want tax advice, help with loans, mortgage applications, financial planning. Andy helps all of them. In return, the guards give Andy protection. They tell the sisters to leave Andy alone. Boggs Diamond refuses to listen. Boggs attacks Andy one more time in the bathroom. The guards find Boggs the next day, beaten so severely that he can never walk again. He is brain damaged, a vegetable. He spends a week in the infirmary before being transferred to a minimum security hospital. Boggs never returns to Shawshank. The message is clear. Andy is now protected. Captain Hadley did this. The sisters disband. The other members are too scared to continue. Andy is finally safe. Warden Norton hears about Andy's financial skills. Norton calls Andy to his office. This is the first time they really meet. Norton is polite but cold. He gives Andy his whole speech about the Bible and following rules. He makes Andy read a passage from Scripture. Then Norton gets to business. Norton runs something called the Inside Out program. It is presented as a rehabilitation effort. Inmates do manual labor for local businesses and government contracts, roadwork, building repairs, construction. The inmates work for almost nothing, sometimes just pennies. The businesses pay the prison full labor costs, but Norton pockets the difference. It is a massive money laundering scheme. Norton has been doing this for years. He has secret bank accounts all over the state under fake identities. Randall Stevens is the main false identity Norton uses. Randall Stevens has a birth certificate, social security number, driver license, and multiple bank accounts. But Randall Stevens does not exist. He is a ghost created by Norton to hide stolen money. Norton needs someone smart to manage these accounts, someone who understands banking and finance, someone who will keep quiet. Norton assigns Andy to be the prison librarian. It is a cover. Andy's real job is managing Norton's illegal finances. Andy has no choice. If he refuses, Norton will make his life hell. So Andy agrees. Andy becomes the new prison librarian in 1950. Brooks Hatlin is still there, but Brooks is old and slow. Andy takes over most of the work. The library is still a disaster. One room, a few shelves, barely any books. Andy decides to change that. If he is going to be stuck in prison for life, he might as well make something worthwhile. Andy starts writing letters, 1 letter per week to the state government, asking for funding to expand the library, asking for book donations, asking for anything. The state ignores him. For years, Andy does not stop. He writes every single week without fail. While Andy works on the library, he also manages Norton's money. Andy creates financial reports, moves money between accounts, files false tax documents. He makes Norton rich, very rich. Norton's scheme expands. The Inside Out program grows. More contracts, more money. Norton becomes one of the most powerful men in the state. And Andy is the one making it all possible. In 1952, something tragic happens. Brooks Hatlin is granted parole. Brooks is 70 years old. He has been in prison for 47 years, almost half a century. The outside world has changed completely. Cars are everywhere. Technology has advanced. Society is unrecognizable. Brooks is terrified. He does not want to leave Shawshank. Prison is the only home he knows. In a moment of desperation, Brooks holds Haywood hostage with a knife. Brooks threatens to kill Haywood. Not because he hates Haywood, but because if Brooks commits another crime, he will stay in Shawshank. The other inmates talk Brooks down. They take the knife away. Brooks breaks down crying. He is released a few days later. Brooks is sent to a halfway house in Portland. He gets a job as a bag boy at a grocery store. He lives in a small room. He is completely alone. Brooks writes letters back to Red and the others describing his life outside. Brooks hates it. Everything moves too fast. People ignore him. He feels invisible. He cannot adjust. After a few months, Brooks carves his name into a beam in his room. Then he hangs himself. Brooks Hatlin was here. Red reads Brooks's final letter out loud to the others. Brooks wrote that he does not like the outside world. He is tired. He decides to stop fighting. Red reflects on this. He talks about institutionalization, how prison becomes your whole world, how the walls close in around you until they are inside your head. When you are released, you have nowhere to go, nothing to live for. Red fears he will end up like Brooks someday. Andy continues writing letters about the library. In 1954, after 5 years of weekly letters, the state finally responds. They send Andy $200 and a box of used books. It is not much, but it is a start. Andy is thrilled. He keeps writing letters. More money arrives, more books, more shelves, donations from private citizens. Over the next several years, Andy transforms the library. He catalogs everything, organizes books by genre and author, creates a real functional library system. He starts playing music during library hours. Mozart, Hank Williams. The inmates love it. The library becomes the best room in Shawshank, a place where inmates can read, learn, escape mentally even if they cannot escape physically. Andy also starts teaching inmates. He helps several inmates earn their high school equivalency diplomas. He teaches basic reading and math. The warden allows this because it makes Shawshank look good, makes Norton look like a reformer. But the truth is, Andy genuinely cares about helping the inmate. Around this time, Andy befriends Tommy William. Tommy arrives at Shawshank in 1963. He is young, maybe 27 or 28 years old. Tommy is doing time for robbery. He is not violent, just stupid. Made bad choices, got caught. Tommy is loud, energetic, and funny. He makes friends easily. Tommy wants to get his high school diploma. He asks Andy to tutor him. Andy agrees. They spend months working together. Tommy is not the smartest student, but he tries hard. Andy is patient. They develop a real friendship. One day, Tommy mentions something from his past. He tells a story about his time in another prison, Thomaston. Tommy shared a cell there with a guy named Elmo Blatch. Blatch was a career criminal, violent, always bragging about his crimes. One time Blatch told Tommy about a job he pulled in 1947. Blatch broke into a country club pro's house to rob it, but the pro came home with a woman. Blatch panicked. He killed them both, shot them with their own gun. Blatch said the woman's husband was a rich banker type. Blatch said the husband got blamed for it, got sent to prison for life. Blatch thought that was hilarious. Andy hears the story. He goes pale. This is the truth about his case. Andy did not kill his wife and Glenn Quentin. Elmo Blatch did. Andy was innocent the entire time. 17 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Andy immediately tells Warden Norton. Andy says they have a witness. Tommy can testify about Blatch's confession. They can reopen Andy's case. Andy could get a retrial, maybe even released. Norton listens to all of this. Then Norton refuses. He will not allow Tommy to testify. He will not reopen anything. Norton tells Andy to forget it. Andy argues. He pushes back. This is his life, his freedom. Norton loses his temper. Norton tells Andy the truth. Norton needs Andy. Andy is too valuable. Andy manages millions of dollars for Norton. If Andy leaves, Norton's entire operation collapses. Norton threatens Andy. If Andy keeps pushing, Norton will burn the library. He will take away everything Andy has built. Norton will even kill Andy if necessary. Norton sends Andy to solitary confinement, a month in the hole for talking back. While Andy is in solitary, Norton deals with Tommy. Norton calls Tommy to his office. He offers Tommy a deal. Transfer to a minimum security prison. Better food. Better condition. All Tommy has to do is stay quiet about Elmo Blatch. Tommy refuses. He wants to help Andy. Norton has Captain Hadley take Tommy out behind the prison. Hadley shoots Tommy in the back multiple times. They claim Tommy tried to escape. Nobody questions it. Andy is released from solitary. He learns Tommy is dead. Andy knows Norton had him killed. Andy is broken. For the first time in nearly 20 years, Andy has given up hope. Red notices. Andy seems hollow, empty. One night, Andy and Red sit together in the yard. Andy talks about Mexico, about the Pacific Ocean, about a place called Zihuatanejo. It is a little town on the coast, warm water, no memory. Andy says if he ever got out, that is where he would go. He would open a small hotel, fix boats, live in peace. Red thinks Andy is dreaming. Red warns Andy about hope. Red says hope is dangerous in a place like Shawshank. Hope can drive a man insane. Andy disagrees. Andy says hope is the best thing, maybe the only thing worth holding on to. That conversation is the last real talk they have before everything changes. The next day, Andy seems different. Calm, almost happy. Red is confused. That night there is a storm. Heavy rain, thunder, lightning. The guards do their count. Every inmate is in their cell. Lights out. The storm continues all night. Morning comes, the guards do their wake-up routine. They bang on the bars, yell at the inmates to get up. When they reach Andy's cell, he is not there. The bed is made, but Andy is gone. Captain Hadley opens the cell. Andy's blanket is covering the wall. Hadley rips it down. Behind the blanket is a hole, a tunnel carved into the concrete wall, big enough for a man to crawl through. Andy is gone. Warden Norton arrives at the cell. He cannot believe it. The warden walks up to the hole. He looks inside. The tunnel goes back several feet before turning. Norton realizes Andy has been digging this tunnel for years. Andy used the rock hammer, the little 6-inch rock hammer that Red said would take 600 years to dig through the wall. Andy did it in 19 years. Andy covered the hole with the pinup posters Red got him. First Rita Hayworth, then Marilyn Monroe, then Raquel Welch. The posters hid the tunnel entrance perfectly. Nobody ever noticed. Andy dug at night, a tiny bit at a time. He dumped the concrete dust in the exercise yard, let the wind scatter it. 19 years of patient, silent work. Norton is furious. He wants to know where the tunnel goes. The tunnel leads into a narrow pipe shaft that runs vertically through the prison. Andy climbed down the shaft. At the bottom is the main sewage line, a massive underground pipe that carries all of Shawshank's waste out to a treatment plant. Andy broke through the pipe using a small rock. The sewage pipe was old and rusty. It gave way. Andy crawled into the pipe. The sewage pipe is 500 yards long. Andy crawled through raw sewage for 500 yards in total darkness during a storm. The film shows this moment. Andy covered in filth, barely able to breathe, but moving forward. Finally, Andy reaches the end. The pipe empties into a drainage ditch outside the prison wall. Andy emerges, free. He stands in the rain, arms raised, letting the storm wash away the sewage, washing away 19 years of prison. Andy is free. But Andy is not done. Before Andy escaped, he spent months preparing. Andy stole Warden Norton's dress shoes, a nice suit, Norton's personal records, bank documents, financial files, all the evidence of Norton's crimes. Andy stored everything in a waterproof bag and hid it in the tunnel. When Andy escaped, he took everything with him. The morning after the escape, Andy visits several banks. Andy is dressed in Norton's clothes, clean, professional, looking exactly like a banker again. Andy goes to each of Randall Stevens' accounts. Andy is Randall Stevens. Andy created all the paperwork years ago, the signatures, the IDs, the birth certificate. Andy made Randall Stevens real. And now Andy becomes him. Andy withdraws every penny from Norton's accounts, over $370,000, a fortune. Andy takes Norton's life savings and disappears. But before leaving town, Andy mails a package. Inside the package is all of Norton's financial record, evidence of the money laundering, the fake identities, the corruption. Andy mails it to the Portland Daily Bugle newspaper. The next day, the newspaper publishes everything. The scandal explodes. State police arrive at Shawshank. They have warrants for Warden Norton and Captain Hadley. Hadley is arrested immediately. Norton locks himself in his office. The police bang on the door demanding he surrender. Norton opens his safe, takes out his cash reserves. Then he pulls out a revolver. Norton shoots himself in the head. His body falls against the wall, right under his embroidered sampler. His judgment cometh, and that right soon. Red narrates that Andy crawled through 500 yards of sewage and came out clean on the other side. All the warden got was a bullet. Life at Shawshank changes after Andy escapes. A new warden is appointed. The Inside Out program is shut down. The library remains, but nobody cares for it like Andy did. Red continues serving his sentence. In 1967, Red goes up for parole again, his third hearing. The parole board asks Red the same questions they always ask. Do you feel rehabilitated? Are you sorry for your crime? Red gives them a different answer this time. Red says he does not know what rehabilitated means. Red says not a day goes by, he does not feel regret. Not because he is in prison, but because of what he did. Red says the young man who committed that crime is long gone. Only an old man is left. Red says he would talk to that young man if he could. Tell him the truth. Try to make him understand. But that young man is gone. All Red has is regret. The parole board approves Red's release. Red is paroled in 1967, 40 years after he entered Shawshank. Red is sent to the same halfway house where Brooks lived. Red gets a job as a bag boy at the same grocery store. Red lives in the same room. Red even finds Brooks's carving on the beam. Brooks was here. Red understands exactly how Brooks felt. The outside world is too fast, too different. Red is just going through motion. Red considers violating parole, getting sent back to Shawshank. At least there he knows how to exist. But Red remembers his promise to Andy. Before Andy escaped, Andy told Red something important. Andy told Red about a hayfield in Buxton, under a big oak tree at the end of a long rock wall. Andy said if Red ever got out, he should go there. Find that tree. At the base of the tree is a volcanic rock that does not belong. Under that rock, Andy left something for Red. Red decides to go. Red takes a bus to Buxton, walks to the hayfield, finds the oak tree, the rock wall. Everything exactly as Andy described. Red finds the volcanic rock. Under it is a metal box. Inside the box is money, almost $1,000 in cash, enough for Red to travel. There is also a letter from Andy. The letter says Andy is in Zihuatanejo. Andy describes the town, the hotel he is fixing up. Andy invites Red to come join him. Andy says he hopes Red decides to come. Hope. That word again. Red makes his choice. Red violates parole. He leaves Maine without permission. Red takes buses south, through the United States, into Mexico. Red narrates that he hopes Andy is there. He hopes the Pacific is as blue as it is in his dreams. He hopes. The film ends with Red walking down a beach in Zihuatanejo. In the distance, Andy is working on a boat. Sanding the hull, Andy looks up. He sees Red. They smile. They embrace. Two friends reunited. Two men who survived Shawshank and found freedom. The final shot is Andy and Red on that beach. The Pacific Ocean behind them. The future ahead of them. Together. Now let me talk about what you might not know. The original story. The Shawshank Redemption is based on a novella by Stephen King called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. It is part of a collection called Different Seasons, published in 1982. The novella is different from the movie in several ways. In the book, Red is actually a red-haired Irishman. That is why he is called Red. The movie cast Morgan Freeman, who is black. They kept the nickname but changed the explanation. In the movie, Red jokes that maybe it is because he is Irish. In the book, Andy is much smaller, described as a short, slim man. Tim Robbins, who plays Andy in the film, is tall, over 6 feet. In the book, the warden is not named Norton. The warden is a man named Samuel Norton in the film, but the book has different wardens over the years. The book spans a much longer time period, nearly 30 years. The film condenses it slightly. In the book, Tommy Williams does not die. He is transferred to another prison and stays quiet about Elmo Blatch because Norton threatens his family. The movie made Tommy's death more dramatic and gave Andy a stronger reason to escape. In the book, Brooks's suicide is less detailed, just mentioned in passing. The film gave Brooks a full subplot to emphasize institutionalization. In the book, Andy leaves a note for Red hidden under a piece of volcanic glass in a hayfield. Same location, but slightly different object. The film made it a metal box with cash, more cinematic. The book ends with Red on a bus heading toward the Pacific. We do not see the reunion. The movie added the beach reunion scene, which is more satisfying emotionally. There were deleted scenes and extended sequences cut from the final film. One deleted scene shows more of Andy's trial. Extended courtroom footage with more testimony and evidence. It was cut because it slowed down the opening. Another deleted scene shows Red's first parole hearing in detail. More dialogue with the parole board. It was cut because the film shows 2 other hearings later. There was a longer sequence of Andy being attacked by the sisters. More violent, more graphic. Director Frank Darabont cut it because test audiences found it too disturbing. There was an extended scene of Brooks working at the grocery store. More shots of him bagging groceries, looking lost. It was cut for pacing. There was more footage of Andy teaching inmates in the library, multiple students working with him. Cut for time. There was a longer version of Red adjusting to life outside prison. More scenes at the halfway house. More interactions with his parole officer. Cut because it repeated Brooks's experience. There was an alternate ending filmed where Red walks down the beach and it fades to black before we see Andy. Test audiences hated it. They wanted to see the reunion. Darabont reshot the ending to show Andy and Red together. The movie is inspired by real prisons and real events. The Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio was used for filming Shawshank's exterior and interior. It is a real prison built in 1886. It operated until 1990. The prison is massive, Gothic architecture, intimidating, perfect for Shawshank. Today, it is a tourist attraction and museum. Fans of the film visit every year. Some of the prisoners' experiences in the film are based on real accounts from various prisons. The rooftop beer scene was inspired by real stories of inmates doing work details and small moments of freedom. The library expansion is based on real prison library programs that relied on donations and volunteers. Institutionalization, like Brooks experienced, is a real psychological phenomenon studied extensively. Many long-term inmates struggle to adjust after release. Suicide rates among recently paroled inmates are tragically high. There are fan theories about the film. One theory suggests Andy and Red are both dead, that Shawshank is purgatory. The theory points to religious imagery throughout the film. The Warden's Bible quotes, "The idea of redemption. The fact that Andy goes through a sewage pipe like a birth canal and emerges reborn. The theory says the final beach scene is heaven. Andy and Red have found peace in the afterlife. Most fans reject this theory because the film is clearly literal, but it is interesting. Another theory suggests Red is an unreliable narrator, that Red embellishes or changes details because he is telling the story from memory years later. This would explain small inconsistencies or dramatic moments that seem too perfect. Some fans believe Andy had help escaping, that someone on the outside assisted him with money or logistics. The film never shows this, but it would explain how Andy knew exactly where to go and what to do after escaping. Another theory is that Randall Stevens was a real person that Andy identity stole rather than a completely fake identity Andy created. The film does not confirm this, but it would add another layer to Andy's planning. The film was not initially successful. When it was released in September 1994, it made only $16 million at the box office against a $25 million budget. It was a financial failure. Critics liked it, but audiences did not show up. The film was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, but won 0. It lost Best Picture to Forrest Gump. However, the film found new life on home video and cable television. People started watching it at home. Word of mouth spread. By the late 90s, The Shawshank Redemption had become a cult classic. By the early 2000s, it was considered one of the greatest films ever made. Today, it is ranked #1 on IMDb's top 250 films list. It has been there for years. Over 2 million users have rated it. The film endures because it is universal. It is about hope, about friendship, about perseverance, about maintaining humanity in inhuman conditions. Those themes resonate across cultures and generations. Well, I am done. I hope I covered everything. I hope this is the most comprehensive Shawshank Redemption breakdown on YouTube. I did not mention every single line of dialogue or every background character, but I got pretty close. When my pacing is perfect, the writing is brilliant, every scene serves a purpose, the acting is phenomenal. Morgan Freeman's narration is one of the best voiceover performances in film history. Tim Robbins plays Andy with such quiet intensity. You believe every moment of his 19-year plan. The supporting cast is perfect. Bob Gunton as Warden Norton, Clancy Brown as Captain Hadley, James Whitmore as Brooks, William Sadler as Haywood. Everyone is great. The cinematography is beautiful. Roger Deakins shot this film and it looks stunning. The music by Thomas Newman is iconic. That main theme is instantly recognizable. The Shawshank Redemption is about hope. That is the core message. Andy tells Red that hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things. Red argues that hope is dangerous in prison, but Andy proves Red wrong. Hope is what allowed Andy to dig for 19 years. Hope is what gave Andy the strength to crawl through sewage. Hope is what brought Red to Zihuatanejo. Hope is what makes us human. The film is a masterpiece. So what did you think? Did I miss anything important? Let me know. I'm going to go watch it again. Get busy living or get busy dying. That is the choice. That was not even that clever. That was just quoting the movie.